Hey guys, today I have a quick tutorial for anybody who wants to learn how to crochet tighter and more consistent. This technique applies to all types of crochet, not just mosaic crochet, which is what I have on my channel exclusively. The key to having a tighter tension has a whole lot less to do about how hard and how tight you're pulling this part. It's all about how you're holding your hook and how you're working all of the stitches. You really need to let the width of the hook determine the size of every loop of every stitch. So let's just jump right into the tutorial. I am going to be using a 6mm hook or a J hook, and I've got Cascade Pacific. So I'm just going to start with a slip knot. However you do yours is fine. And we're going to start with just chains so you can see my technique versus some other ways I've seen other people do theirs. Also how I've started crocheting. So we're going to just do our regular chains, and I'm not going to move my hand at all. And what starts to happen is the further we are away from this, our chains become a whole lot looser and a whole lot more difficult to handle. So usually I like to only do chains in intervals of like 5. That way I can move my hand and make sure that my tension stays the same and doesn't stretch out. So only do a few stitches at a time, and this way you'll know you're not going to have any parts that are wide with holes or stretched out. You really want to make sure that this hook is only making the loop that you need and you're not stretching it out any further than that. So let's now do a row of single crochet stitches in this chain. So we'll skip the first chain right here right next to the hook and go into the second loop and do a regular single crochet, and you'll see I'm pulling my hook while I'm making that stitch. This is how I've seen a lot of people do it. They don't move their fingers, they just let the loops pull up to this point here. Again, once you go down here and you pull up a loop, a lot of people tend to pull this first loop up to where the top of this work is right here. And when you do that, you're making this first stitch here pull up a whole lot, and it becomes a lot looser, and then you kind of lose any gauge that you're trying to keep. And what I like to do is, instead of pulling up, you're rocking your hook in place and always moving these fingers towards the base of the stitch, so you're not forcing your hook up where it doesn't need to be. You're holding it in place here. So I'm just going to continue along to the end so I can show you how I do double crochet stitches. Okay, so I've chained 2 and turned my work, and now we're going to work all double crochet stitches over here. This is where I believe tension goes wild, because if you're not really paying attention to what these loops are doing while you move your hook, things can really go haywire. So what I've seen a lot of people do is doing a double crochet. You yarn over and insert your hook into the first stitch, and then you pull up a loop. And sometimes what I've seen is people will pull this loop all the way up to the top of that first chain. And that is what's causing the stitches to be very, very inconsistent. You're no longer using the hook to determine how wide that stitch is. So this will create a very, very loose double crochet. I'll show you when you finish that stitch by doing 2 loops and 1 loop. And again, I haven't moved my hand at all. Keeping it down here, keeping it right where it is, doesn't help. You could see this is a very, very loose stitch. Even if I pull this very tightly, let's do another stitch here. We'll yarn over and go into the stitch, pull up a loop, and what a lot of people do is pull this all the way up here which makes this loop extremely loose. So when you're doing the final 2 pull throughs here, this is a very, very loose stitch. This is exactly what I did in order to make this swatch right here. And compared to how I do tighter stitches with this one, you can see there's a big difference in size here. So let's just ignore all of this and I will show you how I do tighter, more consistent stitches. So we're going to go back to the 2 chains at the very beginning. We're going to yarn over, go into the first stitch. We're going to pull up a loop, but do not pull your hook up. We're going to leave it exactly. You can see I'm putting the hook through here. This, and this are all the same size loop. And at that point, move your hand, this hand right here, move this up so you're holding the base in place. If you have your hand placed like this, you're less likely to pull the loops too far. So now we have tension here. We can pull through these 2 loops easily. And then I hold it up here again and move my hand up a little bit. So now we have more tension again. We're going to pull through those last 2 loops. And now we have a much tighter, much more consistent double crochet because we're relying on the hook to determine every loop size. Let's do that a couple more times here. So we'll yarn over, go through our first stitch and pull up a loop, but we're almost rocking our hook in place. Don't pull this loop up. Keep it right where it is. You could see all 3 loops are the same width as the hook. And then we can easily pull through those first 2 loops and the last 2 loops. And those 2 are very consistent double crochet stitches. And as you can see, I'm not really pulling the yarn very hard with this hand. This is staying pretty loose. I really don't even wrap my yarn around my fingers very much. Just around my top finger, index finger, and I hold the base of the yarn with just these bottom fingers here. So not that much tension. Enough to make consistent stitches, but not enough to like pull it really tightly. But when I am fighting yarn chicken at the very end, I will pull that a little bit tighter, but for the most part, I don't. So let's do a few more stitches so you can see. I know double crochet stitches are like way more likely to be loose because of pulling up stitches. So I'm just rocking my hook and I'm almost turning it this way to pull up the stitches instead of bringing that first loop all the way up here. So you'll see this is what would happen if we pull the loop up all the way over here. There's that much that we are losing tension with. So don't do that. We're going to rock our hook in place with every loop that we do. And I do move my hand down here a lot. And that's to keep things from being pulled out of place. And really, I've never claimed to be a fast crocheter, but I do maybe potentially hold the record for the tightest crocheter ever. Because if I have to go really tight, I'll go really tight. If I want this to be tighter than this, then we're going to switch to a smaller hook. And that's how you get it even smaller than that. Now, this smaller hook, which is a 5mm, these loops, if we rock our hook and don't pull it up, will be the same length every single time. So while we're on the topic of hooks, I've switched to a different hook that I use for everyday stuff. This used to be my hook that I crocheted with everything, and I'm going to do another video next about this hook right here, but it really doesn't matter if you have a thick handle, thin handle. What's really most important about crochet hooks is that this part right here is consistent all the way through, and that this head right here is nice and consistent as well, like you can see here. I'll have a full video about that later, but this is the kind of hook that you don't want to use for making sure that your tension is okay. You can see that really this just blends into, there's no there's no solid, like, I don't even know what size this is. There was a sticker on the bottom and it's gone now, but really, like, it's very thin here and gets very wide, and for anyone trying to crochet consistently, this is tough because there's no way of knowing, like, okay, can I keep it here, here, here? It's just, no, don't use hooks that have an angle like that. And I know we all learn how to crochet differently, and it's going to be very difficult to adjust how you hold your hook and your hand and your yarn if you've been doing it the same way your whole life. I just pulled out a blanket that I made a million years ago, and yeah, let's cut to that video. Here is a perfect example of why using your hook to determine your loop sizes is extremely important. This is my very first crochet project that I started when I was 8 years old, and you can see the bottom here is extremely wide, and then as I went on I got tighter and tighter and tighter, and then I don't know, we got loose towards the end there. So yeah, use your hook to determine your loop sizes. It'll go a lot better. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I'm going to be back real soon with another project video because we need more projects, right? Thanks for watching. Bye.